Coming up, we break down the LSU Outfield in 2026 on this brand new edition of the Babin on the Bayou show, hosted by yours truly, as always, Justin Babin Jr. It is indeed Hump Day, Wednesday, February 4th, 2026. Shout out to my older sister, Macy. It is her birthday today, so just wanted to say love you, sis, and give you a shout out on your very special day. So wanted to do that. Thank you, folks, as always, for tuning in. I really appreciate you guys. Thank you for always tuning in. But let's get right into the show today. We spent Monday and Tuesday, the first two episodes of this week, breaking down the pitching staff for LSU going into 2026. Broke down the starting rotation and what that's going to look like on Monday, and then we broke down the bullpen yesterday on Tuesday. We moved today to the outfield. So we're going to cover the outfield today, and then I think on Thursday and Friday we'll kind of split the infield. I don't think we're going to do the infield all in one episode. I think tomorrow we'll cover catcher and then the left side of the diamond, and so catcher, shortstop, and third base tomorrow. I think we'll do second base, first base, and talk about the DH position on Friday to close out the week. But let's talk about the outfield. Let's get into that. And this is, I said it 2 weeks ago, this is what I'm most excited about heading into 2026 because of all the production and three guys you have returning that are going to start in Derek Curiel in center field. He's going to play center. Jake Brown's going to play right field. Left field's going to be manned by Chris Stanfield. All of those guys are returning from the national championship team last year. So to have pretty much your entire outfield that won you a national championship last season, was your starting outfield in Omaha last season, to have all of those guys returning is a big, big plus for this team in 2026. And I think with all the talent you have returning, this might be just the best outfield in America this year in 2026. And I think it starts with Derek Curiel. Derek Curiel, as a freshman last year, played in left field. He's going to transition over to playing in center field in 2026. He was the best freshman in America in 2025. He was the National Freshman of the Year in 2025, according to D1 Baseball. Consistently from the jump, as soon as he got on campus, hit at or near the top of the order. He hit, lead off pretty much almost every game for you last year, or at least 1, 2, or 3 top of the order as a freshman on a eventual national championship winning team. I mean, when you look at it, he led the team, batted a team high 345 batting average as a freshman with 20 doubles, 2 triples, 7 home runs, 55 RBIs, and 67 runs scored. I mean, Derek Curiel was an absolute star. He was a stud as a freshman, best freshman in America last season. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think he's got a long future in baseball ahead of him as far as making it to the majors and potentially being a star in the MLB, because what he did as a freshman in his first year in a college uniform, in a Tiger uniform, was absolutely incredible. I mean, what he did, really the best player on this team, I mean, pretty much throughout the season. I mean, he started his college career with I think a 30 to 40 consecutive game on base streak to start his college career last year in 2025. And Derek Curiel was just a stud. I mean, you can't talk good about him enough. He's going to be a first round draft pick in next year's MLB draft, and he's he's the best player on this team. Derek Curiel is the best player on this team, and he's just a stud. I mean, you look at the projections for 2026. D1 Baseball came out with their SEC conference preview last week, and they predicted that Curiel was going to wind up being the SEC Player of the Year in 2026, and pretty much every baseball website that covers college baseball, from D1 to Baseball America to Perfect Game, has Derek Curiel as a preseason first-team All-American in 2026. One of the best players in the country, the best player on this LSU team, and Derek Curiel is a stud. Now, he is going to move over from left field to center field. That was kind of always the plan. Jay Johnson's talked about how, as a freshman, he knew Derek Curiel was going to hit at the top of the order with his talent, with his advanced talent, with his absolute talent that is going to play in the majors one day. Absolutely. And so he wanted to take center field off of his plate, at least as a freshman, because he knew he was going to hit at the top of the order. But the plan was always for Derek Curiel's sophomore season, for his second season in college baseball, he was always planning to move to center field, and that's where he will be this season. Now, that was a little bit complicated by the fact that Chris Stanfield is returning. You didn't really expect Chris Stanfield to return. You expected him to get drafted last year after you won that national championship. He ended up not getting drafted, ended up saying, okay, I'm not drafted. I want to come back for my senior season at LSU. And, he was informed that, yeah, if he came back, he was going to play left. He wasn't going to play center for a second consecutive season at LSU, and Chris Stanfield was fine with that. I mean, Jay Johnson raves about Chris Stanfield not just as a player, but as a person, as a team guy, as a leader. So he's taken to left field like a champ. I mean, that's what Chris Stanfield does as a team guy, as a leader. Stanfield last year, I thought in his first 2 seasons of college ball at Auburn, he was a decent hitter, but I think he had his best hitting season by far in his first year at LSU in 2025, batting .298 with 15 doubles for LSU in 2025. He was actually the Tigers' leading hitter in SEC regular season games. He batted .326. That was his batting average in SEC play with 14 doubles, 1 triple, 9 RBIs, and 25 runs. I mean, Chris Stanfield, again, he had a great season, and he's a great defender. He makes a ton of diving plays and miraculous catches in last year in center field. This year is going to be in left field. But, yeah, I mean, when you talk about a guy like Chris Stanfield who has over 650 plate appearances in his college career, just super duper great guy, with a great veteran with great experience, and you didn't expect to have him back. But after he didn't get drafted, he is going to be back. He adds a real speed threat to this offense, probably the fastest guy, or at least one of the fastest guys on this team. Real speed element to the offense. I think it's going to be interesting to see what you do with him what you do with him in the order in 2026. Because last year, Chris Stanfield, not because his bat is not good, but what you did was he batted 9th in the order for most of last year. And the reason why is not because his bat isn't good, because you wanted a second leadoff guy, a guy to turn the order over, for guys like, at the time, Derek Curiel, Daniel Dickinson, Jared Jones, to be able to hit with a guy like Chris Stanfield on base with his speed. So I think they're going to do that again. I think that's what I would do was Chris Stanfield, but it's not because he's not a good bat. He's a great bat. He's a really good bat. But I love his speed element, and if he gets on base for guys like Derek Curiel and, Zach York, who we'll get into in a later episode, and Cade Arrambide, that's where LSU can do their damage on the base pass. So Curiel in left, and then Jake Brown's going to play right field. And I love Jake Brown. Jake Brown's one of my favorite players getting to watch him the past 2 seasons at LSU. Just an incredible athlete overall. Just a great player. I mean, I think when he came to LSU, he came as a pitcher too. He was absolutely coming out of high school. He was he played in the outfield, yes, but he also played pitcher as well. I mean, Jake Brown's just a great athlete. He's a phenomenal athlete. He hit his batting average was .320 last year for LSU with 9 doubles, 2 triples, 8 homers, and 48 RBIs. Brown batted a team high .385 batting average in Omaha in the College World Series with 4 RBIs and 2 runs scored in Omaha. And just like Chris Stanfield, Jake Brown has over 300 plate appearances in his college career coming into 2026. I think when you talk about Derek Curiel, Chris Stanfield, and Jake Brown, you're talking about the unquestioned leaders of this team with their veteran experience. These are the leaders. These are the character guys. These are guys who, I think in 2024, coming off of the Natty that you won in 2023, you lost so much. You lost Dylan Cruz. You lost Paul Skeens. Think of all the other guys that you lost as well, right? This year is kind of different, in 2026 coming off of the title in 2025, and it's mainly different because your whole outfield that started in Omaha for you last year all of those guys are returning. All of those guys are returning and coming back to start for you and play in the outfield and be one of the best outfield in the country in 2026. And that is a huge plus for the Tigers in their defense of the national championship after they didn't really have much returning production in the 2024 season, but they have their whole outfield back in 2026 after winning a Natty in 2025. Behind those three guys, you have a couple of guys as well. You have a couple of freshmen in William Patrick and then Mason Braun. Although I debated including Mason Braun in this discussion because Mason Braun can play outfield, but I think he's going to wind up at first base. Mason Braun was the number one first baseman in America coming out of high school in the 2025 recruiting class. We'll get to him a little bit later, but he does play outfield as well. So William Patrick, Mason Braun, and then you brought in a JUCO transfer in Daniel Harden as well to add some depth in the outfield. William Patrick, the freshman, is a native of Monroe, Louisiana. He's going to be, like Stanfield, one of the fastest guys on the team as a freshman in his first season at LSU. As a high school senior, William Patrick batted a whopping .472 as a high school senior. He's number 77 on Perfect Game's top 100 freshman list, entering this season after being ranked as the 26th best outfielder in the country coming out of high school, and he was the second best player in the state of Louisiana coming out of high school as well. Look, you have some freshmen here. You have William Patrick. You have on the infield guys we'll talk about in later episodes, and guys like Jack Rucker and Ethan Kloss and catcher Omar Surnam. But I think Mason Braun is where it starts out at, because Mason Braun, he rakes like he's a hitter. Like, he's got light tower power. When you talk about Mason Braun, again, you're talking about a guy who, coming out of high school, was ranked as the best first baseman in America coming out of high school in the 2025 class. And look, I think when you talk about Mason Braun, he has immense power, light tower power, hit a couple of homers in fall ball for the Tigers. Jay Johnson has said publicly that he thinks eventually during Mason Braun's time at LSU, Braun will hit at the top of the order, or at least in the middle of the order, because he just got raw power and great hitting skills, and he rakes, and he raked in fall ball for you as well. Braun was at the MLB Draft Combine last spring, and at the MLB Draft Combine last spring, Braun hit the longest homer at the Combine last spring at 430 feet. He's ranked number 20 on Perfect Game's list of the top 100 freshmen coming into this season. Look, LSU always has great freshman classes. I think the number one guy out of that freshman class is Mason Braun. At least when you talk about in the field and at the plate as well, I think it's Mason Braun. Because Jay Johnson is really high on him. Hit a couple homers for you in fall ball, and a guy who just has immense power. I don't know if he'll be able to get a ton of playing time as a freshman, because I think Zach York is going to get a majority of the reps and starts at first base, and then he's not going to take a spot from Curiel Brown or Stanfield in the outfield. But I think he will get some time to flash that power and show off that power, maybe in a DH role early in the season in non-conference play. But, Mason Braun is a guy to pay attention to for the future. And then Daniel Harden, the JUCO transfer, Daniel Harden hit .354 in his 2025 sophomore season at McLennan Community College, and he had some good outfield depth for the Tigers after a good fall. And overall, look, this position group is the one I'm most excited about because, again, you have a trio of veteran outfielders, a trio of national champions, all returning for you in 2026. Which, when you compare the 2024 team that defended a national title after winning in 23, you did not have that. Having your whole outfield back is huge. These are going to be the leaders, the veterans of this team coming into the season. So I, for one, cannot wait to see Jake Brown, Derek Curiel, and Chris Stanfield hit the baseball diamond and be possibly the best outfield in the country in 2026 with their veteran proven experience. All of these national champions, returning to the Tigers in 2026. So that is my outfield breakdown. But let me now take the time to tell you about our wonderful daily sponsors over here at Babin on the Bayou and the team over at Shield Heating and Cooling. When you're talking about the team at Shield Heating and Cooling, a team of experts with multiple decades of experience as experts in the AC industry, I love my audience. I want to reward you guys for always faithfully tuning in to the show. So if you call the team over at Shield Heating and Cooling at the number 225-46-BAYOU. That's 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U. You call the team over at Shield Heating and Cooling today. Tell them you heard about them from the Babin on the Bayou show, and I'm giving away free AC system clean-in checks for every AC system in your home, whether that's one AC system in your home or 4 or 5 AC systems in your home. It doesn't matter. Call the best team in the business today over at Shield Heating and Cooling at the number 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U today to take a part in this amazing giveaway, completely free of no cost to you, saving you money. Free AC cleaning checks for every AC system in your home as a sign of my gratitude towards you guys for always tuning into the show. So please take a part in this giveaway. That number again is 225-46-BAYOU, B-A-Y-O-U, and that's Shield Heating and Cooling, your local comfort defenders. Alright, I love college football, y'all, but we gotta stop. The rulers, the powers that be, whatever, they keep making things worse. And they did it yesterday when they came out with the playoff schedule for 2027. I'll run it past you real quick. So the quarter finals of the playoffs for next season will be held on December 30th, 2026 and New Year's Day 2027. Then the semifinals is a full 2 weeks after that on January 14th and January 15th. And then the national championship game will be played on Monday, January 25th, 2027. This is ridiculous, guys. It doesn't make any sense. Why? Who wants a full 2-week gap between playoff games? Coaches don't want that. Players don't want that. Universities don't want that. And most importantly, fans don't want that. Nobody wants that, guys. Why are we doing this? Why can we not? I laid out my ideal schedule last week. Not last week, a few weeks ago. I think that, look, when you break it down, the playoffs should be held in December. And you shouldn't have playoff games on Friday or Thursday or Wednesday when you have Saturday. Use Saturday. Why are you not using Saturday? It doesn't make sense to me. And this schedule doesn't make sense to me. You keep making it worse. You keep making it to where the playoff is right in the middle of the transfer portal window. So playoff teams have to contend with, competing for a national championship while simultaneously building their roster for next year. And then the schedule is broken and they keep making it worse. Now we have a full 2 weeks between every playoff round, and it doesn't work. Nobody wants this. Nobody wants this. You want Saturday playoff football in the month of December. Do it every Saturday in December is college football playoff Saturday. Do that. Expand the playoff if you want to. Whatever. Don't expand the playoff if you want to. Whatever. But why are we extending it to near February? The college football playoff season. It doesn't make any sense. And yeah, I know I kind of ranted on about that, but it's stupid, guys. It doesn't make any sense. And they keep making it worse every year. I will say it and say it again. The rulers, the powers that be in college football are the worst of any sport in America. And it's not close. Today is National Signing Day. Now, National Signing Day for football has taken a backseat in recent years to the early national signing period in December, which is when most high school recruits commit, and then it's taking a backseat ultimately to the transfer portal that opens and is open in January. But today is technically National Signing Day. We talked yesterday about how LSU has added Georgia Military Academy offensive line transfer Adrian Lamb. And then Kiffin also received, I don't know exactly what day, but recently LSU did receive a late commitment from Archbishop Shaw High School safety Jackson Williams for the 2026 class. Safety Jackson Williams was at one point committed to both Tulane and Washington State, but he is now a Tiger. And then the last thing I wanted to cover, by the time you're seeing this, it'll be done. Of course, I filmed this in the morning for those of you who don't know, but by the time you see this, Lane Kiffin will have already had his press conference at 2 p.m. today. His time with the media, his first media availability session, I believe, since his introductory press conference at the beginning of December. So that's going to be interesting. Obviously, when you talk about Lane Kiffin, I think the main questions. Some of the main questions that everybody has, obviously, the quarterback situation with Sam Levitt coming off of that Liz Frank injury. Obviously, he's going to be limited in spring practice, so Hassan Longstreet and Landon Clark will get most of the reps with the ones in spring practice. You reloaded at receiver, bringing in 9 transfer wide receivers on top of the 3 freshman receivers that you brought in. So that competition is going to be very interesting. Very interesting to see the competition on the offensive line, with you bring Jordan Seaton in, right? One of the best offensive linemen in the country, going to be a first-round draft pick in 2027. And then you bring in guys like Baylor's Sean Tompkins, Devin Harper from Ole Miss, Alubah from Maryland. You retain Braylon Moore. You retain Weston Davis, Solomon Thomas, the Borderline brothers, all of that. And then you brought in a bunch of more transfers on the offensive line. So that's going to be a key position to pay attention to. And then defensive line, I've said it. I loved what you did on defensive line in the transfer portal. You brought in guys like Prince William Monmielen and Jordan Ross, and the pass rush is going to be hopefully much improved for the Tigers in 2026. And Blake Baker's not going to know what to do with himself because he won't have to pressure. He won't have to send like 7 guys or 6 guys or whatever. He won't have to send so many guys to get pressure on the quarterback. And what is Blake Baker going to do when he realizes he can get pressure with 4 guys up front on the quarterback? I mean, look, I'm excited to see. I'm very bullish on this defensive line heading into 2026. But I'm also interested. I'm interested in the relationship between Lane Kiffin and LSU offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss Jr. Because when you think about the offensive coordinator for a program that has Lane Kiffin as the head coach, you think, oh, that's the easiest job in the world, right? You're talking about Lane Kiffin, one of the brightest offensive minds we've ever seen in the sport of college football. But I think when you talk about it, I mean, Charlie Weiss Jr., he's a young guy. He's only 32 years old. He is like immensely talented. He turned down 2 offers from the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles from 2 NFL franchises to go become their offensive coordinator. He turned those jobs down to stay with Lane Kiffin at LSU. And look, Lane Kiffin obviously trusts Charlie Weiss Jr. as a bright, young offensive mind, giving him the keys to call the offense basically at Ole Miss in 2025. And when Lane Kiffin wasn't on staff anymore for the college football playoff, and Charlie Weiss Jr. was the only offensive player he was the offensive play caller. He was the guy. Lane Kiffin was not coaching the team, obviously, in the playoffs. Charlie Weiss Jr. and Ole Miss put up 39 against Georgia offensively, and they put up 27 against Miami offensively. So I think that relationship is interesting with Lane Kiffin and Charlie Weiss Jr. And then the one that you have to talk about is keeping Blake Baker. Like, you kept Blake Baker, you retained Blake Baker, one of the best defensive coordinators in the entire country. Look at what you had in 2023, the atrocious secondary, terrible defense you had in 2023, and in just 2 years, in 2025, Blake Baker took that to become a top 25 unit in the entire country this past season. And keeping Blake Baker and Corey Raymond and Jake Olson and Kevin Peoples and all of those guys was huge. So look, by the time you see this, the press conference will already be over and done with. We will cover it tomorrow. We'll talk about what Lane Kiffin said, things that stood out to me. We'll talk about that tomorrow after we lead the show tomorrow with our discussion on the catcher position and then the left side of the infield. So tomorrow we'll cover catcher, shortstop, and third base Friday, we'll cover second, first, and then DH. And that'll kind of bring us to a close of the week. Although, remember, of course, tomorrow night, huge game for women's basketball at a top 5 team in the country in the Texas Longhorns at 8 p.m. on ESPN. Can't wait for that one. That's a big one. We may talk about that a little bit tomorrow as well. But I'm excited to see Kim Mulkey and company face a top 5 team in the country, a team that they already beat. They already beat Texas in January, but this one is it's not at the PMAC. It's on the road in Austin against a top 5 team in the country on Thursday night on ESPN. That's going to be a big one to pay attention to. But that is all that I have for the show today, folks. I thank you folks so much for tuning in. Remember to like the video, share the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're not subscribed already. Tell a friend about the show. Thank you folks, as always. I appreciate you guys so much for tuning in. Happy birthday to my older sister, Macy. Love you, Mace. Hope you're having a great one. And remember, God bless, go Tigers, and have a great one.